Tom, you kind of set some ideals of the whole trans community based on RuPaul's Drag Race on this film. But this film, I'm not sure, is it trying to be that clever by being that dumb?
I think it's just trying to get its mates. Let's make a film. Let's get all of our friends and make a film. That'll be fun.
And I think I agree with that. I don't think it's a superb film. I don't think it handles all the issues particularly well. But I think it does have the conversation. And I chose it because I kind of like it. It's kind of fun. I watched it at the gym. It was good fun. And it did make me think about things. It did make me go away and have conversations with people.
Alrighty, guys. This is episode 45 of Flixwatcher Pod. I'm joined, as always, with Helen.
Hello.
And on this episode, we'll be talking about Hurricane Bianca with Tom.
Hey, hey.
And Izzy.
Ahoy, hoy.
Come find us on Twitter at FlixWatcherPod. Visit the website flixwatcher.tv for full listings, and don't forget to subscribe to us on iTunes and leave us an awesome review. Hello and welcome to this edition of Flixwatcher Podcast. Today we are joined by Tom and Izzy. If you would like to both say hello and tell us a little bit about how you know each other and what you get up to when you're not joining us for podcasts.
Well, I am Izzy. I'm a stand-up comedian and podcaster. And opposite me is Tom, who is Tom from Bake Off, is his official
Tom
job
from
title.
Bake Off. How many Toms from Bake Offs are there?
I think there's 3.
But you're the definitive.
Do you have to stipulate
Tom.
which series of Bake Off it is?
Yeah, I'm the best series.
Yeah.
That's the clear way of demarking it.
The one he didn't win, that one.
Yeah. It was so good, I thought, I'll let other people
To be fair,
have the
you won
glory.
Bread Week.
I did win Bread Week.
That
which
meant
is,
you should have won.
Yeah.
That is basically winning it.
You're
Yeah.
a star baker twice, weren't you?
Yeah, totally.
So, yeah, as Helen says, can you let us know? So that was 2016,
2016, the last one that was on the BBC.
which is the last true Bake Off.
Exactly. The last
true
Berry
great
Bake Off.
one. And me and Tom together, we make a podcast called the British Museum Membercast. Do we not?
We do indeed, because
Yes.
when I'm not baking, I have a real job, because baking doesn't always pay the bills.
What?
I know, shocking. So we work with Izzy and we tell the members and visitors of the British Museum all about the cool, secret, interesting ideas and objects in our collection.
Yeah, like naked Scythians.
Do you have a favourite thing in the British Museum?
Ooh, I do, but I think Tom's is better. Because Tom's favourite thing in the British Museums involves Jesus doing funny things.
It does. My favourite thing, which I saw when I was probably 6, I think the first time I saw it, was a set of tiles in the medieval gallery, which shows Jesus playing with his friends, where his friends keep annoying him, so he just kills them. And then the Virgin Mary comes along and is like, yo, Jesus, I mean, seriously. And he has to raise them from the dead each time. And I just love that that's what medieval people thought Jesus was like.
I just love the idea of Jesus as a kid, though. I think that would be lovely. With Mary just going, Jesus Christ, get in the house now. I think it would be, Mom, Jesus is resurrecting dead cats.
How popular would he have been as a teenager, being like, guys, can we buy some alcohol? And he'd be like, guys, it's fine, bottled water.
Nice.
Yeah, super cheap. I'll sort this out.
Yeah.
So what's the second best thing in the British Museum?
Well, I mean, I like a lot of different things, but my favourite thing, and this isn't interesting at all, but if you go up to the Japanese gallery, they've got these little, what's they called those things they hang on their belts? Azukis. And there's one of a little rabbit, and I love it. It's lovely. And I'd nick it if I could. However, they won't let me.
That's why I have to stay with her at all times.
Exactly.
In the museum.
I will climb on everything. This is the truth. No, it's not quite the truth.
Excellent. Well, we should probably get on to the film, which is Hurricane Bianca, which is your choice, Tom. So can you firstly tell us why you picked it and then give us a little bit of a brief synopsis?
Sure can. I picked it after my wife recommended that I watch it. We are both big RuPaul Drag Race fans, and this is a spin-off film of one of the queens off RuPaul's Drag Race, and it's awesome. And
Many people stony-faced around this table.
Yeah, going, what?
What's this RuPaul's Drag Race?
RuPaul's Drag Race is the greatest artistic achievement of humanity to date, and I can say that definitively because I work at the British Museum.
Okay, you do know.
Yeah, I've seen it all, and this is the best. No, I chose it because I do a lot of work in trying to talk about issues, social issues, particularly gender, LBGTQ issues, and I think this film is a perfect example of how to take some really difficult and often challenging conversations around those areas and issues and put it in a format that's quite accessible and a little bit funny, and it kind of sugarcoats it. It means we're not having a super heavy conversation about LBGTQ issues, and instead we're kind of having a funny chat and a laugh about a film, but we're still talking about issues that maybe 20 years ago would have been said in hushed tones. And I just think that's awesome, and I think it's what we need more of. And that's what I do a lot of my baking. A lot of my cakes are actually satirical, political bakes these days.
Oh, wow.
What does that mean? Give us an example of a satirical bake.
So I'm working on a few recipes at the moment. We've got things like the blow your own cream horn, which is a bake for women in the workplace to take in when they've done something absolutely freaking awesome at work. And they're not going to say, hey guys, we approached it as a team. They're going to bring in a massive tray of cream horns that say exactly on them, I closed the deal. We've got Smash the Patriarchy brownies, which is like a really delicious brownie with the shattered remnants of the glass ceiling spread across them in sugar glass. Bits and pieces like that. We've got
one quick question. Where are the cakes for us to sample?
We ate too many jelly beans.
Yeah, too many jelly beans, not all cakes. No, I was at work all day because sadly I have to work all day.
You've not got like a little mini oven that you can sort of have it plugged in the office and you can be...
Not yet. On Mondays is the day to get me because I always bake on a Sunday, and then in the office there's always some random experimental bake that I've brought in for whatever reason.
So let's talk about Hurricane Bianca.
Mm-hmm.
Give us a synopsis of the film.
So it's a pretty simplistic film. So the synopsis of the plot doesn't take very long. I mean, it basically focuses on this teacher called Richard, who originally lives in New York. That's where you first meet him with his friends in New York, and he really desperately wants to be a teacher. He should come to the UK. He'll get employed immediately. Richard's gay. And the only place he can get employed as a teacher is actually in rural Texas. So he packs his bags, moves to rural Texas, ends up in some slummy house that he hates, goes for his first day of work. Variety of hilarious and over-the-top American comedic things happen, and he gets outed as a homosexual, as a gay guy in the school, and is fired as a result of that, which... is legal in the US in many states, which is really the driving reason this film has been made, is just to make that single point. Once he gets out in fact, he goes out and tries to get a drink, can't because he's in a dry county, so ends up driving miles and miles away, goes to a drag show, gets drunk, meets a transgender woman who gives him the idea to Mrs. Doubtfire his way back into the school, walks in as a woman, and takes his sweet, sweet revenge as the wonderful Bianca Del Rio, which is the actor's actual drag persona, and then takes revenge on all the people who were mean and homophobic towards him, to her, and then wins the Teacher of the Year award with lots of ridiculous things happening in between.
There's lots of ridiculousness.
There is a lot of ridiculousness. There's also everything, like even the weatherman, I imagine, must be part of.
Well, that's RuPaul.
Yeah, it's RuPaul.
So yeah, it's quite obvious what's going on in terms of every other voice is obviously, every background actor who isn't they are all friends. It feels
totally.
it feels like the sort of film that your friends made while they were at college.
So this feels like a Judd Apatow film.
I suppose.
Where they're just all hanging out making silly...
Absolutely.
I thought you were going to say because it feels like it's 3 hours long.
Judd Apatow films are 3 hours long and feel like they're 6 hours long.
Yeah. I mean, I would say this film itself is like the drag queen of a film. Mm-hmm. So if you think that, the drag queen is over the top in an intentional way, part of the value of that and part of the culture is being super over the top and accentuating certain bits and pieces of a behavior. This film is kind of doing that. This film is in itself in drag.
Yeah,
which is
all of the Christians in it are very over the top in their stereotype, I suppose.
Well, it's the middle of the Bible Belt, isn't it? So this
but they're not very kind to the people in the middle of the Bible Belt either.
Oh no, totally not.
This is a caricature of people in the middle of the Bible Belt.
It's a propaganda film for sure. It's a total propaganda film.
But it's a caricature of everyone. Everyone in this film is caricaturized. So I think the drag queens are caricaturized. The people, the kids in the school are the obvious jocks and the obvious cheerleaders and stuff like that.
There's no seriousness because if Bianca said what she said to a teenager, that teenager would be traumatized for life. And be actually crying. She also recommends violence as a way of stalling, bullying, and that sort of thing as a joke. And there's a callback, which would have been so nice if it had just been left subtly in rather than pointed out. But it's little things like, I like the film, but what I dislike about it is the fact that it assumes I'm an idiot. So like things like the pointing out of the gags after they've made them, like I know I saw it.
Yeah,
it was amusing the first time.
I think this film would be better if it'd been made by someone British, because it would be slightly more subtle on certain points. So the scene where she takes laxative and there's an explosion out of the roof of the school, I mean, that took it too far for me, but I think that took it too far for me because of the audience.
She wasn't a she at that point.
No, he was a he at that point. But I think there's other bits of it where you go, wow, okay, that's pretty clever. So there's a scene where Richard arrives back in his kind of hovel of a house in Texas, and his neighbor, who has a Confederate flag outside and is itself a caricature, has written faggot on his wall, and which is a superbly violent and aggressive move that actually speaks to an experience and a shared experience of LBGT community in that part of the world and elsewhere in the US and elsewhere in the world. That is put in, and you see it, and the audience who might not be otherwise engaging with conversations about the forms of language that are used to talk about people in the LGBTQ community are seeing that. And I think that's the power. So yeah, I think if you are engaged in Switch On, it's like, okay, well, I know all this, and this is a bit of a ridiculous film. But particularly given that the audience of RuPaul's Drag Race is a much younger audience, particularly teenage audience, I think it's quite important that a film like this will have that audience and it will be engaging with these issues, but in a way that isn't meaning that you switch off because it's boring. And I think that scene particularly for me stuck in my mind because I thought, wow, if you'd have changed the music, you could have made it a really emotionally dark scene. But instead it was like 2-second scene, move on, but it clicked in my brain.
Helen.
Tom makes it sound a much better film than it actually is. I mean, as a film, it's terrible.
Yeah.
It's awful.
But it's very difficult to like the characters, isn't it? Because they're just so not in the room.
Yeah, and
there's a lot of ordering to invisible waiters, which really gets up my nose.
I mean, I've got some notes. I've got drag. It is a drag. It's. I didn't laugh once, and I mean, I don't watch RuPaul's Drag Race, so I don't have the background connection. I mean, I quite like the character Bianca, because she's particularly great and sassy, and it just feels like a real wasted opportunity of obviously cashing in on RuPaul's Drag Race and the great character, and as Tom's kind of said, the meaning behind it is kind of there, but it's really not delivered very well.
I think I find it difficult because I don't find, and this is terrible because I'm friends with people who do drag, and I just don't find it. I think because I am a tall woman, I take it very personally. I don't see, for me, what drag is men taking the piss out of women's stereotypes. To me, it just from a personal thing, it's just like this. How is black and white minstrels not allowed, but this is? Because every single woman they portray is always a bitch and is always horrible and funny, don't get me wrong, and I'm not saying they shouldn't do it, but it's always the stereotype that you're just seeing there, just and because it engages that part of me just goes, I can't find this funny because that is. And the thing that I found slightly unbelievable about it is the fact that everything, but also she walks back in there as a drag queen, and obviously a drag queen,
and no one notices.
But she's meant to be Mrs. Doubtfiring it, and Mrs. Doubtfire is not offensive because it's Robin Williams playing a character. This is what a woman's like, an absolute cat, and you're just like,
So I think some of it's about drag culture. And I mean, I will honestly say I had literally no idea. Then I started watching RuPaul's Drag Race, which I highly recommend, which is an insight into a culture that prior to doing that, I had no access to whatsoever. And I think it's really easy to see it as just a performance, but it isn't just a performance. It is part of trans identity for many men who want to express gender in that way. It's the right way to kind of have this conversation. So you're right in saying that, yeah, my God, that is a horrible representation of femininity, and it's an outrageous expression of femininity. But there's some really interesting conversations to have around that about why we think feminine and masculine, and whether or not the reason why drag queen culture is expressed in this way is because it is an expression of the way that the patriarchy has defined womanhood, and therefore, if you want to be seen as a woman, you have to behave like this. So it's a mirror on itself. Now, I think that's an awesome conversation to have. I probably won't go into it as huge detail here because we're talking about films, but that's why I like this film, because while I agree it is not a pinnacle of artistic production, I can end up having a conversation with someone about that, and probably have a conversation with someone about that I otherwise might not have had. So for me, it's more just an interesting conversation starter.
No, I do not disagree with that. I don't want to sort of, getting into, comparing it to black and white minstrels it isn't. But in many ways, I find it difficult because none of that's addressed, and also the women in it are all villains.
I did find troubling.
All horrible.
Yeah.
All
horrible.
But the thing is, and it just makes me...
You mean the cis women in there?
Yeah.
But I think you're right in saying that there's times in this film where I want it to be so much better than it is, but it misses the mark. And I think for me, it misses the mark most in a line right at the end where they talk about toilets. And I think the principal kind of says, "Oh, that's fine, you can stay here, just stay out of the women's toilets or stay out of the men's toilets," or something like that. And I went round and round in my head because I was like, is that line about the really prescient issue in the US at the moment?
With the bathroom bill.
About the bathroom bill, and about this massive issue for the trans community and the way they're being persecuted. But the response is like, I'll try. And I'm like, is that, what do you, and it just couldn't, it wasn't an out and out kind of conversation about that, and it missed it. And I think it missed it because the acting fell short. And I think that's true of a lot of bits and pieces of the acting and directing in this. So I think you're right. You could remake this film and you could tighten everything up and you could make it a lot sharper, and it would be a lot better. But I still think this film is making people have conversations that they wouldn't otherwise have.
So you're kind of saying, well, this is the best we've got at the moment, so let's lump it in a way.
Have you seen Priscilla, Queen of the Desert?
No, I haven't. That's on my watch list.
That's a good version of this.
Okay.
Well, I was just thinking...
It's not as funny in terms of it's not trying to be as funny.
Well, I was watching this and I was thinking, because we've reviewed Paris is Burning quite recently, and that's kind of like a bit of a more interesting look into drag. And yeah, it's quite an interesting way into looking into the background behind drag in New York in the sort of 70s, and that's handled a lot better.
Well, that's a documentary, so that's literally just people. This is like, holy shit, this is so this is set, Paris is Burning, to give you guys a brief background, is set at the same time as disco's finishing, hip-hop is kind of starting, lots of bad shit's going down in certain parts of New York.
Drugs.
Yeah, AIDS and drugs are rife. AIDS is kind of coming up, and drugs culture and stuff like that. The bad drugs, heroin and stuff, is becoming more prevalent. And against the backdrop of that, there's these balls where the men go and they dress in drag, not necessarily drag per se, but they go and dance and they have the ballrooms thing and they just become themselves in whatever way that may be. And for some people, it's military, hardcore military. For some people, it's a full-on drag kind of thing. So it's
they go in Vogue.
Yeah, they go in Vogue, and that's where Vogue started. Was this. So I kind of separated the two. I think this is very much OTT and caricatured, and I don't know. I kind of took it for what it was.
Yeah,
it's a kids' film. I mean, that's what I would also say. I don't think.
Do you think it's a kids' film?
Is it though?
Yeah, I do. I think it's a teenagers' film. It's a young teenagers.
So you think it's like a My Little Pony for?
Possibly not that young. Although we are in a room entirely wallpapered with ponies, which is slightly creepy.
It is a bit.
But I think it is, and that's knowing the demographic that watches the show that this is spun off from, and having recently attended a live show of that show, there's definitely a young teenage audience watching this.
I think from the success of things like Rocky Horror. And I mean, there are other, I remember watching a great musical called Glitter Boots back in, I think it must have been 2004 or something like that. And I just find the lack of sympathy of anybody I can relate to a bit upsetting.
Yeah.
I mean, the one female character who is vaguely, who isn't evil is the janitor, and she does nothing other than is about to dance right at the end and doesn't. They just use her as a joke because she's
a little person.
She's a little person, and so they use that is all that there is about her, other than she comes out on the side, but there's no indication she's going to. And other than that,
I mean, my notes are bullies, vile characters, drag, and that's as far as I got.
Yeah,
I think that's a pretty accurate summary.
Yeah.
But as I say, not everything in it. It's not trying to be a perfect representation in the same way that drag is not trying to accurately say I am passing for a woman. It's about a different sort of expression of gender in a similar way that,
just like the black and white minstrels were saying, I'm not actually trying to pass as a black person, which is what they did.
But that was for entertainment value, and I think
drag isn't.
Well, no, I think people in drag entertain. But that doesn't mean that drag is expressing just entertainment.
That is true.
Drag is an expression of a certain trans experience.
That is a very good point.
And
there's a good difference.
Yeah,
good points have been made.
Yeah, no, I'm happy with that. That reconciles a dilemma in my head.
And my dilemma I have as well.
Because it was a genuine sort of dilemma I was having. Is how is this different? How is this good? And I'm just going, okay, that makes a lot of sense.
So unpack that for us. How's that kind of separated in your head?
For me, like I said, I find it very difficult because people in drag tend to portray over makeup, lots of cleavage, big heel, a caricature of a woman.
Yeah, Jessica
and part
Rabbit
of that
type
caricature part of the caricature of a woman is I'm a bitch, and I say what I like, and nobody cares, and I don't care, and that to me is not what a woman is. That's what a horrible person is. And the fact that they're choosing to represent this, just as like, how is that different from, say, people back in the past going, oh, but black people, they like to sing songs, so let's dress up as black people and wear outrageous costumes to portray that and sing songs. It's only entertainment. It's a bit of fun. I like black people. Just because I do this doesn't mean I'm representing, black people. It's just that sort of thing. And in my head, it's very difficult conflating the two, other than no white person, I don't think anyway, has a thing where they dress up as a black person because that's who they think they are.
Right.
In the same way that somebody, who wears drag because that is an element of their personality. And I think that's a nice difference because it becomes then about identity and not about taking the piss out of people.
And I think there's a question about, and a really interesting one that I certainly don't know the answer to, because I think this is an area of human culture that I'm really interested in exploring. And definitely this is my opening foray. It's, it can only get better. Is that the culture of drag as it has come? RuPaul's Drag Races born out of a culture of these drag races that came around in the 70s and 80s, and it is in itself a cultural thing that has grown up. But it's grown up out of its own community. It was not in any way we're going to make fun of women. It was an expression that has organically grown. And actually, one of the things that I think is interesting, you see a little bit in this film, but perhaps it's not brought out so much, is there are different queens in here that have different styles of drag, and there's different cultural appropriations, and in different parts of the country you get different expressions of that. So there's definitely a degree to which there is a cultural and a societal pressure that's changing this. But at the heart of it is actually, an expression of what it is to be trans and what it is to have a non-cis idea of what your gender is and to also explore that.
Yeah, and a slightly fluid one when it comes to both sexuality in terms of the PE teacher and in terms of, identity as what you go about your day as, Bianca or what's his face.
Yeah, and I think, you point out, like, she walks into the school and she's got this ridiculous, like, she looks ridiculous, and you're like, what? How do you pass? And I think that's actually kind of getting you to go, we all know that she does not look like that, but that's getting you to recognize that maybe the thought process you should be going through isn't like, wow, that prosthetic to make you look like a woman wasn't great, but in that moment, that character is expressing as a woman, and so we as there she goes again. Is expressing as a woman, and so the viewer is going, right now, that is a female character. And that's actually an important thing to kind of pull out and think about, is the representation of femininity on film. A really great an interesting exploration of the trans experiences in Transparent, the show. And there's a lot of
Jeffrey Tambor.
Yeah, and there's a lot of controversy there of why have they not used a trans woman as that actor.
We touched upon that in one episode that's out at the moment, is Dallas Buyers Club, where Jared Leto plays a trans character, and we talked about that in terms of should that have been a trans actor in that role. We didn't resolve it, and this, I think, is one kind of discussion that can go on.
I think it's both sides.
The danger with acting is that you're going to get
go blind.
You're gonna exactly, but you're gonna end up with people going, well, they're not Catholic, so they shouldn't be playing a Catholic. And the whole point of acting is that you're playing somebody who is not you.
Yeah, but I think that's one of the arguments I've heard about why it's fine that he's playing that role is that you psychologically see that person so much. It's almost like America's uncle playing a trans character, and that is actually challenging to the viewer. The fact that you're not looking and seeing somebody who has transitioned in a way that fits our gender normative assumptions of what men and women should look like actually raises in the societal conversation something more challenging. And that's something I think that drag can do very well, is it's not like, oh, I didn't realize that person had at one stage in their life gender identified as a man. You go, okay, that's somebody who is, and that's quite brave. And I think a lot of that kind of comedic and showmanship that you see on stage and that you see in drag possibly
vicious.
Yeah, possibly comes out of a kind of a reflection of an experience and a lived experience. And I think that can be quite difficult to understand. And I don't particularly like it either. I like it when the queens are some of my favourite queens are the ones who just sing amazingly. And they just come on stage, sing amazingly, and they're fabulous and they're funny and they're not particularly catty. But that's because I like that performance, and not actually, it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with their expression as wearing drag, because you could wear drag and never perform.
True.
Do you think this is the right format to discuss? In this film, it doesn't, you've kind of set, Tom, you kind of set some ideals of the whole trans community based on RuPaul's Drag Race on this film. But this film, I'm not sure, is it trying to be that clever by being that dumb?
I think it's just trying to get its mates out. Let's make a film. Let's get all of our friends and make a film. That'll be fun.
And I think I agree with that. I don't think it's a superb film. I don't think it handles all the issues particularly well. But I think it does have the conversation. And I chose it because I kind of like it. It was kind of fun. I watched it at the gym. It was good fun. And it did make me think about things. It did make me go away and have conversations with people. And I thought, that's a good opportunity to go on a podcast and have a conversation also about these issues, which is something that I like to do. And that in that way, I think it's a good thing. And almost in the fact that it isn't perfect is good, because it means you have some of the different conversations that's quite nice. But it's definitely not the highest quality.
So this is our unique scoring system. The spreadsheet of dreams.
It is actually a spreadsheet. It's very unsexy.
Spreadsheets are sexy. What they need is some color coding in this.
Do we?
Yeah, you
need some conditional formatting, so that if it gets a high score, it goes green. Low score goes red.
Oh my god!
We should do actually that. If anything goes above a 4.5, I think we need to flag it.
But the problem is, guys, this is a podcast. No one can see that.
Yeah, but
And
we
also, I
paint a
don't
picture
think
with your words.
exactly. Also, I don't think we're in danger of going over 4.5 with this one.
I think that's quite unlikely.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
So first up is the recommendability score. So we'll start with you, Tom, and it's out of 5. You can have points if you wish. You can have 0.
By points, she means as many decimal places as you want, although you don't like
I'm
that.
going to go to 5. No, I'd give this a 3 in recommendability. And I was going to give it less because I thought, but then I thought, no, actually, I've recommended
You
it.
did recommend
And I was going
it.
to say, I came here, recommended it, and I've recommended it possibly to everyone I've spoken to for the last month or so. So I think it is recommendable, because my whole justification for why I like the film and want to show it is that I want to have conversations off the back of it. So if I'm not recommending it, I'm not going to have the conversation. So I'm going to give it a 3.
I will give it a 1. Mainly because there are other better films about this sort of. So I'd say, Priscilla, Queen of the Desert is a good one. I'd say, but I'm a cheer. If you want a good teenage film which is funny and heartfelt and real and lovely, it's a film called But I'm a Cheerleader, and it's about a girl who doesn't realise she's gay until her parents send her to a stop being gay farm, and it's just great because she goes in going, but I'm straight, and everybody's like, you're not, and by the end of it she is not. And it's great. So there are better films, I'd say, to recommend talking about
for the general
LGBTQIA.
Yeah,
for LGBT, etc.
I'm gonna give it a 1 as well. I mean, did I find it? I find it insulting to watch. I think the diarrhea gags are probably like really low on any scale of humour, and I think having that in there kind of undercuts any good
and
work.
Inflatable breast ones.
Yeah. Sorry, 1. It's not a very good advert for Texas either, so I don't even want to go to Texas.
Exactly, and Texas is lovely.
I don't think it's trying to advertise Texas somehow.
Well, I want to go to wherever is it San Antonio, Texas? Wherever your man who wrote Days and Confused is from.
Linklater.
Yeah. What's that town in Austin? I want to go to Austin, Texas.
So you could go for South by Southwest then.
I go, but it's one of those things whereby it's not really Texas then, is it? It's just like a festival in a city.
You could go for the festival and then stay for a bit.
What, sorry?
The least Texas bit of Texas.
What Austin is?
Yeah.
That's what it would be though.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to give it a 2.
Aww.
I'm going to give it a little
sorry
bump.
for it.
Yeah, I feel a bit sorry for it. I didn't find it that bad, and it's quite an interesting reason that you brought it to the table, Tom. Within 5 minutes, it kind of went, okay, it's this kind of film. It's not going to be particularly insightful.
Even the rat that bites him at the beginning is obviously not a wild rat because it's got white markings on it. That's all you need to know. Even the rat is badly
just
cast.
on the bad casting of rats.
Yeah.
Repeat viewing score. Tom, how many times have you seen this?
Can I give it a 0?
Wait, how many times have you seen it though?
Oh, I've seen it once.
Okay. All right, hold on. So that was the first time. I thought you'd seen it before and then wanted us to...
Oh, no. I had it recommended to me.
Right.
And then you guys said, oh, we want to film. And I said, oh, okay, I'm going to watch it at the gym. I watched it at the gym. And then I emailed you and said, we'll do this one.
Okay.
I also kind of thought it needed to be kind of a Netflix film, which I now realise it could have been a proper film.
So what else was in contention before you chose this?
Oh, so many things. I really wanted to do Power Rangers, which would have worked really well.
Yeah.
No,
this will work well.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. This versus Power Rangers, I probably would have given Power Rangers a lower score.
No, I'm more passionate about the joy of Power Rangers than I am for this. No, I mean, I don't really have very erudite.
British Museum needs
Rangers.
a Power Rangers exhibition.
Oh, I'm going to commission that.
I believe Dulwich Picture Gallery's got a Moomin exhibition later on this month.
Fantastic.
So
there was
I thought you were going to say that
I will not be watching this for a second time.
Fair enough.
Moomins is as good.
You can give it a 0.
I'm going to give it a 0.
Izzy?
Also, I'm not watching it again.
Helen?
It's a 0 from me.
Kobe, you're going to watch it again?
I'm not. So I'm going to give it a 0. This is the first blanket 0.
Yeah.
I feel sorry for it. But I think it's going to get some more points in this next category,
Yeah.
which is the small screen score.
I would give it a 5. Not because it's amazing, but because you definitely shouldn't see this at the cinema.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Am I allowed to do that?
Absolutely. That's the point.
You will miss nothing seeing this on the small screen, so therefore it is a 4.
Well, I mean, I think I'd go even more like don't. Like if someone asks you to see it on the large screen, say no.
Yeah, but you might be able to sneak away.
Yeah, I think this is definitely gym viewing. That's how I would put it.
So I'm saying 4.
You're saying 4, Izzy. Helen?
I'm going to give it a 4. It doesn't get a 5 because a 5 would be that it deserves to be discovered.
You just want to give it a low score as possible. I'm going to give it 5 because if I saw this in the cinema, I'd be just disappointed.
You wouldn't go to see this.
No, exactly. But I
don't think you can. I think that's another point.
I've seen films in the cinema. I've just stayed all the way through and thought, why am I here? So
Spider-Man. Was it 2 or 3?
3 was the one that
3.
everyone hated.
Yeah, 3.
Yeah.
That
Which one was
bad.
3?
The Sandman.
Bad one.
Oh, with Venom.
Venom.
What was going on there?
Yeah, but the camp dancing down the street and the massive glittery dress.
Oh.
Engagement score.
What's that mean?
So that means when you're watching the film, how involved with it were you? Were you?
Were
I
you
think I
checking
started
your
doing some
phone?
admin. And you were in the gym, so you can't.
Yeah, but I'm going to say I was in the gym.
How much cardio were you doing at the
I was
time?
I was cross training.
Okay.
So I need something that dulls my brain
Oh,
from
okay.
the pain
So that's
in
the
my
one
leg.
with the hands
Yeah,
at
yeah.
the same time as the feet.
So actually, I'm
Okay.
gonna give this a 3 because I
Mm.
was engaged because I'm watching
is-
it and I didn't really realize how much time was passing and I'd done quite a big workout before I
That makes
realized.
sense.
So actually, it did engage me, but
Okay.
partly engaged me because I was thinking about
What to say about
what
it?
to say about it and also the interesting questions it threw up.
Izzy.
2. I'll be nice. I'd say. I mean, it's interesting visually. Some of it, just because the horror of that makeup is amazing. But
Do you think that when it comes to, you're a freelancer, aren't you?
yeah,
So when it comes to doing your bills, your
yeah. Doing
HMRC shit, is this the kind of thing you could put on in the background and
Exactly.
not? Yeah.
not pay attention to. It's usually Christmas.
Recommended
films.
viewing by HMRC.
When I do HMRC, it's usually around Christmas time because the office gig is when the office gigs stop.
Yeah.
Then it's the gap between Christmas and New Year's is usually
And
quite
getting
quiet.
the tax return in if you've
That
not
is
done it on time.
Exactly. Well, you don't. You got to the end of January, so you got that nice little. You got 4 weeks. It's loads of time. Get it done by New Year's.
Helen.
Sadly, I'm not self-employed anymore, so I didn't get to do my taxes. But I was coming out of the flu and decided that it would be a good idea to watch this.
Did it
I-
make?
I-
Did how many extra Lemsips did you need?
I can't.
Psychedelic viewing of
Yeah.
it.
I think I did get through quite a few levels of Candy Crush during this film.
Wow.
So that was good. One, I really,
Didn't like.
I
it.
was just waiting for it to end. Really.
I'm going to give it a 2.
By the way, can I just also add? Look, nothing like Lady Gaga. Nothing
No.
like
No,
Lady Gaga.
I
No.
actually thought, could they actually get Lady Gaga?
Yeah.
If they ever had actually Lady Gaga come
That would
in
have been
and done
amazing.
that, then I would have given it at least
You'd
2
have
points on
Yeah.
the recommendability.
I have to say, I was like, oh my God, Lady Gaga's going to be in it. Lady Gaga. And then when she wasn't, I was like,
Yeah.
that was a big disappointment in the film because that would have just lifted it a little bit.
Yeah, it would have been.
Because there's the sort of things you might have done.
I don't
Yeah, I
see
thought
how her being in it would have made it any better. Even
Because it
Give
would
it some legitimacy and,
it would
a
have-
nod to just
also
anything.
and also the fact of who she is and what she represents, which is monsters and we're all your own identity type thing, is basically what she goes for. So it would have been good.
Yeah, it would, and it would have
Yeah.
helped.
It would have added to the fantasy.
Yeah, I think
Right.
it's interesting. I think if we were sat around this table as teenage girls who are interacting, or teenagers in general, however they identify, we might feel about this the way that we're talking about Lady Gaga. So for some people, Lady Gaga is ridiculous and not sensible and does things that are just damaging to the causes that she claims to represent, like wearing a meat dress and things like that. I think similarly, some of the things in this are perhaps just not part of our understanding of this conversation, and similarly, Gaga wasn't for other people as well.
I think as a teenage girl, the only other teenage girls in this are horrible. So why would you? why would you even bother?
Bath mat.
Bath mat, exactly. That is.
Right. I think that's a good place to finish, guys.
Okay.
So it
Ooh,
finishes.
bath
Scrapes a
mat.
2.
It's great. It gets 2.6250, 2.1, which is not high.
No.
No. And okay, guys, can you sign off by letting us know where we can find you online?
Yeah, you can find me online on Twitter at Tom_Gilliford and on Instagram at Tom Gilliford.
You can find all about me at Iszi.com. That is ISZI.com, where you'll find all my ats. But my ats are ISZI_LAWRENCE, Izzy Lawrence. And you'll find me everywhere on that.
Awesome. Thanks very much, guys.
Whoop, whoop.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye. Cheers, guys. You were just listening to the latest episode of Flixwatcher podcast. Thank you to Brendan Russell for his sublime editing skills, Mighty People for the tunes you can hear right now. Please do come to iTunes and find us, like, subscribe, share with your friends. Find us on Twitter at FlixWatcherPod and our website, flixwatcher.tv.